This is Southern Cross Network News.
Another car and a truck collision on the Calder Highway.
And 20 textile workers lose their jobs.
Good evening. A middle-aged woman is in a serious condition in the Bendigo base hospital after her sports car and a semi-trailer collided on the Calder Highway. The accident blocked the highway near Elphinston for almost an hour.
Police say the MGB sports car was travelling south along the Calder Highway when the accident occurred about 1 kilometre north of Elphinston. It appears the car veered towards the centre of the road and into the path of an oncoming semi-trailer. Police say the transport driver swerved in an attempt to avoid the car, but the three rear trailer wheels hit the MG, ripping away most of its driver's side. The woman driver of the sports car was taken by ambulance to Castlemaine Hospital, suffering from facial cuts, head injuries and severe leg injuries. Senior Constable Gavin Alexander says it's not yet known why the car veered towards the transport.
The police will be investigating as to the reasons when they're able to interview the driver of the vehicle and find out exactly how it happened and why it happened. Yeah.
The semi-trailer driver was unhurt, although shocked, and his rig suffered only minor damage. The MG was winched onto a tray truck and firemen hosed the road clear of broken glass while motorists waited patiently for the highway to reopen. Senior Constable Alexander says police are still concerned about drivers' attitudes on the highway.
Well, as you can see by the vehicles going past now, we're at an accident scene and they still travel past at a very fast rate of speed, and we would like drivers of vehicles to pay particular attention to their speed on the highway.
The injured woman was treated at the Castlemaine Hospital before being transferred to the Bendigo base, where she's in a serious condition and being treated for multiple injuries.
A leading authority on road accident trauma in Victoria has scoffed at claims that bad roads are to blame for many accidents in country areas. George Lander says driver inexperience is a major cause of Victoria's road carnage.
This horror accident happened at about 8 o'clock last night.
This morning's accident takes the state's road toll to 251.
She's in a serious but stable condition and was expected to undergo surgery today.
Victoria's road toll stands at 665. 80 more than at the same time last year. But while police and politicians consider ways to curb the carnage on our roads, a leading authority on accident trauma says motorists must accept responsibility.
The aggressiveness of drivers here is unbelievable when you compare it with England, Europe, United States, wherever else you drive.
George Lander is a member of 3 road trauma committees in Melbourne. He says the 3 main causes of road accidents are alcohol, speed and driver inexperience. He dismisses claims that bad roads contribute to accidents in country Victoria.
No, it's not the roads that cause these crashes, it's the people who drive the cars that drive on the roads. So don't blame the roads. In the early days we used to have to cope with roads and we didn't, we survived it.
Mr Lander says Victorians spend $1.5 billion each year caring for the victims of road accidents. He's called on Central Victorians to do their bit by being more disciplined on the roads and obeying road laws.
20 people have been sacked from Bendigo's Perfect Fit clothing factory, and at least another 40 are warned that they too may lose their jobs. Most of the workers sacked today are junior employees who have worked for the company for less than a year. Managing Director Peter McCallum says the company is losing money because of a slump in the retail market. He says the sackings have nothing to do with the company's controversial plans to build a printing factory nearby. Mr McCallum says another 40 people at the factory have been warned that they may also be sacked if they don't improve their performances. The Textile Workers Union is tonight discussing a plan to fight the sackings.
Residents and the National Trust have vowed to fight a second demolition order for the historic music hall at Guildford. The hall has been the centre of a controversy for the past year, and despite the new order, residents say the battle isn't over yet. The 120-year-old music hall was used by miners in the gold rush era. It might have been beautiful then, but now it's little more than a ruin. Since a new hall was built in the 1950s, the old music hall has been neglected. Neglected but not forgotten. For the past year, residents and the National Trust have been fighting a demolition order.
We believe that there is a danger there. The building is obviously propped up and held from collapsing onto the footpath.
The hall's owner, who lives in Daylesford, says he also wants the building demolished, and now it appears he's almost won that fight. The Administrative Appeals Tribunal has upheld the original demolition order. There is one condition of the demolition order, and that is a 6-month reprieve before it's pulled down. That gives residents enough time to come up with the money, possibly $250,000, to restore the building. Residents say it'll be almost impossible to raise that money themselves, but they're not giving up hope.
It's a 19th century music hall, still intact and in need of repair. I feel that demolition by neglect is no excuse for anybody attempting to sort of pull it down because they don't want to spend any more money on it.
The hall is registered with the Historic Building Council, and the National Trust says it's still hopeful of stopping the demolition.
We'll be lobbying the HBC with the aim of having a grant forwarded to stabilise the building and secure its future.
The public will be asked to help prepare a new plan for Bendigo's future development, but planning consultant Trevor Budge says if the plan is to be viable, a regional development body must be set up.
During the next 30 years, Bendigo may need to cope with as many as 50,000 extra people. Huge pressure will be placed on residential, industrial and commercial areas, recreation and community facilities and transport systems. The Bendigo 2020 plan is being prepared to help guide development during the next 3 decades.
Well, the plan has been commissioned by the Regional Planning Authority and its sub-regional committee has been supervising the plan. We've got a consultant team and we've got planners from the Regional Planning Authority working on it.
Trevor Budge says during the next 30 years, the proportion of old people in the community will nearly double. He says tourism is expected to play a much greater role in the economy and travel time to and from Melbourne will be shortened. Advances in telecommunications may eliminate many of the disadvantages associated with living in the country. To cope with all that, Mr Budge says it's vital that Bendigo has a comprehensive planning board to help implement the 2020 plan.
I think we need to coordinate things a lot better than it's been coordinated in the past. There are a large number of servicing organisations which need to be involved, and as we've been going around government departments, we've found that many of them are looking for this sort of coordination because they need to be able to plan their infrastructure and services many years ahead.
Community input is now being sought to the Bendigo plan, and Mr Budge says a series of public meetings will be held during the next few months.
State National Party leader Pat McNamara has called for the reintroduction of decentralisation, and he's accused the state government of neglecting country Victoria.
Mr McNamara arrived in Swan Hill to address the local branch of the National Party and took no time to spell out the issues he says are crucial to country Victorians: high interest rates, escalating unemployment and decreased government services. He says the government is paying scant attention to the needs of country people. He says with interest rates and the price of metropolitan housing soaring, it's time the government put money back into the country.
I think it's terribly important that we focus on decentralisation, even from an environmental point of view. And we can't allow cities like Melbourne and Sydney to continue at the unchecked growth that they have.
Mr McNamara lashed out at the Kane government's economic policies, which he says have seen unemployment in country Victoria more than double. He says since taking office 7 years ago, country unemployment has gone from 25,500 to 52,500.
I think what we do need is to have a government in Victoria that has a more balanced approach to the whole state and merely doesn't stop at the tram tracks. It's too important an issue to play politics with.
As well, the National Party leader attacked the government over cutbacks to country Victorians, such as police station closures and public service numbers. Mr McNamara says a Conservative government would include a minister whose sole task would be decentralisation and the return of services to country Victorians.
Well, in news ahead, plans for a widespread smoking ban in Maryborough.
And the rising cost of humble fish and chips.